Hi, good morning everyone. I passed the PMP exam in 2 weeks. Here's exactly how I did it. Wanted to share how I passed the PMP exam in 2 weeks with 35 hours of studying. I'll break down the video into the following sections: the resources I used, my study plan, my exam day experience, and then my final reflections. All resources will be linked down in the description below. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. So to start things off, I studied the PMP Udemy course, which gives you 35 PDUs, and that is a prerequisite in order for you to take the PMP exam. You need to have the credit in order to get your application to pass. I would highly recommend you to watch the videos 2x to 3x speed to quickly get through the material so that you can get familiarity. Next, I watched Ricardo Vargas' PMBOK flow, and I thought this was a great video on how to internalize the different process groups and make them flow in a logical way. The video is 1 hour long. Would highly recommend you to watch it on 2x speed to quickly get through the content. Following that, I used the PMP process mapping game. It's a more fun game to really understand and test your knowledge on the process groups. Keep playing the game on a daily basis until you get over 90%, as that would probably demonstrate your mastery of the knowledge. Next, I used AR's TIA simulator. This was a great additional resource to really develop that PMBOK mindset and to get more familiar with scenario-based questions. Following that piece, I used David McLaughlin's 200 Agile questions on YouTube. I thought this resource was super helpful to get more Agile-based scenario questions. And last but not least, drum roll. The most helpful resource is the PMI practice exam. No shock, PMI created the actual exam, so their practice guide would probably be the most representative. I definitely found that to be the case. I found that it had the most similar questions to those of the actual PMP exam. So now let's dive into the study plan. I studied for the PMP exam in 2 weeks. In total, it took around 35 hours. Let's break down what I did on week 1 and week 2. During week 1, I studied for approximately 17 hours. I started things off with the PMP Udemy course to give me the 35 PDUs, and I watched the videos on 2x to 3x speed. To be quite honest, a lot of the content is too general and it's not specific enough for the PMP exam, so don't feel obligated to take notes the entire time. I finished the entire course in 13 hours and 15 minutes. Next, I spent 2 hours in submitting my application to PMI for eligibility. This is a step that you should not skip and you should be very intentional with. In order to take the PMP exam, you must submit your application to PMI and it must be approved. If you don't follow the PMI specific guidelines, your application can get rejected. The only reason I know this is because my application was rejected the first time because I did not take the guidelines into consideration. After following the formatting descriptions that PMI provides you on their website, I was able to get my application approved and we were rolling. After submitting my application to PMI, I then reviewed Ricardo Vargas' PMBOK flow to really understand the process groups and to really get that flow down in a logical order. Would highly recommend you to watch the video on 2x speed. It's 1 hour in duration, and I spent 1 hour total watching it. So I watched the video twice in 2x speed. In order to test your knowledge from Ricardo Vargas' video, would highly recommend you to play the PMP process mapping game. This was a more fun way to study for the different process groups. In total, I think I played the game around 7 times, and including revisions and reviews, I spent around 45 minutes. So in total for week 1, that culminates to 17 hours. So let's get into week 2. So for week 2, I spent 18 hours studying for the PMP exam. I started things off with AR's TIA simulator, which includes 6 practice exams to really master the PMBOK mindset. Each exam is 60 questions, and you get 75 minutes in duration. It took me around 45 minutes to complete each of those exams, and I spent an additional 45 minutes to review through all the questions and answers. So in total for each exam, I think on average, I spent around 1.5 hours, so 9 hours total for the exam simulator. I will say the actual exam questions were a little bit more difficult than his exam simulator, but the concepts and principles that I learned from those practice exams was really helpful still. Next, I reviewed through David McLaughlin's 200 Agile questions. This is a YouTube video that David created that's over 6 hours in duration. I did all 200 questions, but that's probably a little bit extreme. I've personally found it to be a great detailed explanation and was a great additional prep as it helped you focus on Agile specific scenario-based questions. My recommendation is if you do go through those questions and you have the time, definitely just fast forward to each question, figure out an answer, fast forward to the answer choices, and then repeat that process to quickly go through the video. So in total for David's video, I spent 3 hours studying to get through those 200 questions. To the final resource, again, I took the PMI PMP practice exam. This can be purchased on PMI's website, and I believe it's $99 retail. I happened to use a discount code at the time that I found on Reddit, so I got it for free. The practice exam includes 261 questions. This practice exam is the most similar to the PMP exam, and I personally thought the practice exam was harder than the actual exam. It is the best representation of the exam-like questions, and that makes sense because PMI created it. So I took the exam into 2 chunks, around 3.5 hours for the first 180 questions, and then around 1.5 hours for the remaining 81 questions. So in total, I spent 5 hours on the practice exam. Last but not least, I then created a tracker for any exam questions that I got wrong on the PMI exam. So for any questions that you may have missed, or any concepts that you just don't understand, I wrote those down in a spreadsheet, and then I kept track of those and studied those before the exam. So in total, I spent around an hour reviewing any terms and concepts that I didn't quite understand. So that finishes up week 2, bringing us to a total of 18 hours. Let's jump right into the exam day. So on the exam day, I took the exam in person at a local Pearson venue. I personally found it to be really helpful as this reduces the risk of technical issues, and the staff were really nice and helpful. The exam had 180 questions, and you were given 230 minutes to complete it. I ended up finishing the exam with 50 minutes to spare, so used around 55 minutes per 60 questions, and then 5 additional minutes to review any flagged questions. So the way the exam works is you have 60 questions. After you complete those, you're given an optional 10-minute break, and then that repeats until you've completed all 180 questions. Would highly advise you to take both of those optional breaks. I use both of them to either grab a snack or to use the restroom and to stretch out a bit as the exam is really long and you can be fatigued. My strategy when taking the exam was I always read the question first, then I read the passages, and then I read the answer choices. I found this to be super helpful as a lot of the questions have certain key words that can make or break an answer choice. For example, if a question has, what should a project manager do first or next? That can lead to a different answer choice than what should a project manager do. So by paying attention to these key phrases in the very beginning, it helped train my brain to eliminate similar answer choices. Last but not least, questions are tricky. Make sure you slow down and be confident and flag any questions for later review. On my exam that I took in January of 2023, there were no formula calculations to do. That being said, I think everyone should know the general formulas like SPI, CPI, CV, and SV, as those ones come up oftentimes in scenario-based questions. Post-exam, you receive your performance immediately. That's when I realized that I had passed, and all of my 3 sections were above target. I do want to emphasize that you should spend as much time as you need to really understand the process groups and to get the PMBOK mindset. These are 2 concepts that are tested in almost every question, and while it's not verbatim, you need to have good deep understanding of those 2 concepts in order to eliminate answer choices. My focus, that being said, was to minimize the amount of time I need to study and to minimize the cost of the resources I used. I know, I sound exactly like a project manager right now. Boring! In terms of the resources, I paid for the Udemy course. I believe you're able to use a discount code to get it under $14. I used AR's TIA Simulator, which was under $45. And then for the actual PMI PMP exam, I got that one for free, but if you're not able to use the discount code, which I've linked below, it's $99. The PMP exam, I believe, which is $555. So with using those resources and other amazing resources on Reddit and YouTube, which I've consolidated in my study guide below, they've definitely all been helpful in aiding me and allowing me to pass my exam. And I do want to emphasize that what works for me and what has worked for others, they may not work for you. I hope this video was helpful in breaking down the entire process. And remember, all your hard work will pay off. Good luck, you can do it.